As Jeb Bush inches closer to a likely run for the White House, his decisions as governor of Florida are getting new scrutiny. One case for which he's been both praised and criticized is the one involving Terri Schiavo. It started as a fight between her parents and her husband over ending her life support. But as numerous legislative and court battles played out, then Governor Bush emerged as a central player. David Gibbs joins us. He was the attorney for Terri Schiavo's family, and he's now president and general counsel of the National Center for Life and Liberty. David, thanks for joining us.
Shannon, it's a joy to be with you on this Sunday.
All right, so Michael Schiavo, who was Terri's husband and obviously was the one who advocated for removing her from life support, has come out in the last few weeks very vocally against Jeb Bush, says he will campaign for Hillary Clinton if she runs. He's had a lot of very pointed criticism for the former governor, but you were inside that entire story. What can you tell us about the other side of that equation?
Well, Shannon, number one, I think it's very disingenuous for Mr. Schiavo to come forward and to say that he is upset that the governor or the government got involved in the decision over his wife when he was the one that, in fact, did that. Michael Schiavo went to court, and I think people need to understand that he went forward and did not want responsibility as a husband to go ahead and make the decision whether to end life support or not, because he knew he could be in trouble. He could find himself facing even murder charges if people felt it was an inappropriate decision. So Michael Schiavo refused to accept the responsibility for the decision and went and asked the courts in Florida, asked the government to make these decisions. And I do think there is such tremendous confusion. It's hard to believe it's been now almost 10 years since Terri Schiavo died back in March of 2005, that people forget that this young lady was alive, that she wasn't sick, there was no cancer or Alzheimer's or heart disease in her body, and she just needed food and water to stay alive. And so the question of that case, and people that remember back the 10 years ago, remember that Terri had that food and water removed, and after 13 days died of dehydration and starvation. But the bottom line was Michael Schiavo brought the government in. He was the one that did not want to make the tough decisions.
Well, and of course, he says that Governor Bush owes him an apology and the people of Florida as well. He says that he very much overstepped his bounds. We know the legislature got involved, signed a bill that allowed him, then as governor, to have her feeding tube reinserted. But Michael Schiavo says, you know, it was a family issue. It was not for public consumption. And the governor is somebody who would overuse his power. The very things that we argue about here as executive overreach.
Well, Shannon, I think, again, Mr. Schiavo brought the courts in. He brought the government in. But I do think there is some misunderstanding on all the issues. Governor Bush was not trying to decide whether Terri Schiavo lived or died. He just wanted to make sure that fair due process was in place. We knew ultimately her life was in the hands of God, but the concern was that here was this woman who had no lawyer. The judge never came to see her, and she was going to die in this painful way, something that we would not allow for convicted killers on death row in the state of Florida. And what Governor Bush said, and by the way, so did the Florida legislature, so did the United States Congress, so did his brother who was in the White House. Everyone had the same concerns. How was this innocent, disabled woman not getting the constitutional protections that we give to killers? And so what Governor Bush was hoping for, as was the Congress, was that she would have a fair trial, that the medical records would be evaluated, and that her rights would be upheld. And so I think for Mr. Schiavo to go ahead and say the governor overreached, what he was really doing is saying, I have a voice, I have some compassion, I have some concern for the disabled, I certainly have concern for the elderly, I have concern for vulnerable citizens who can't speak for themselves. And so the governor in our meetings, when I was with him and Bob Schindler, Terry's dad, was always very concerned about doing the right thing, upholding the law. But his biggest concern was for this innocent woman to face this horrible plight without due process of law.
And Governor Bush, then Governor Bush, has now said he stands by that decision, and when it's a close call, he'd rather err on the side of what he said, the side of life. All right, David, thank you for giving us some more information on that case. Always at least two sides to every story. Good to see you. Thank you.
Shannon, thank you.